Everybody, welcome back to Zero to Funded. This is day 6, I believe, and today we are going to be talking about identifying trend. Now, trend is a very important thing to understand, as general trading knowledge. It's just one of those basic foundation things that you need to know before you start to build up all of your knowledge and trading experience. So make sure to please drop a like on this video and hit that subscribe button if you are not subscribed already, guys. We are actually going crazy. I think we just hit 600 subs, so thank you so much for that. Going to be doing something, probably something special at 1,000 subs, so hit that sub button. It really would mean the world to me. The support has just been great. But without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's lesson, which is going to be identifying trends. Now, the market is always moving in one of three ways, right? We are either going to be in a uptrend, which is going to look something like this, a downtrend, which is going to look something like this, which is, as you can see, what is actually happening right now, or we are going to be, let me actually shrink this down a little bit because I'm going to be drawing on the screen quite a bit, so I'm going to actually shrink my face cam down. Or we are going to be doing something called consolidating, or just kind of chopping around, as some people will call it, which is going to look just something like this, right? We have an uptrend, which is when price is moving up. We have a downtrend, which is when price is moving down. And we have choppiness / consolidation / barcoding. You'll hear a bunch of different terms out there. Everybody really has their own kind of lingo in trading. There's just 100,000 different names for every single thing. That's one thing you'll realize the more that you get into the space and kind of consume trading content, is you'll realize that everybody kind of has different names for the same things. We're going to go over a couple stuff in this video as well, and I'm just going to tell you all the different kind of names that are interchangeable. So if you hear, people throwing around these words, you're like, oh, I remember when Tell said, that is the same thing as this, or this is the same thing as that. Because honestly, a lot of people just love to call everything a bunch of different shit. So anyway, let's go over these three things real quick. Now, an uptrend is where we'll start. So we'll start right here. An uptrend is defined as price making a high and then a low, and then a higher high, a higher low, a higher high, a higher low, and that uptrend continues, right? We have our high here, let's just say, for example, on this drawing. Then we have a low here. We have our next high, which is a higher high. We have our next low, which is a higher low. And that continues, as you can see. Now it's going to be the opposite on a downtrend. We have price moving down, and it makes a low, and it makes a high. Then we have a lower low, and then we have a lower high. And that is going to continue down like so. And then we have consolidation, which is right here, which is where you're going to really kind of want to stay away from entering a trade when price is looking like this. Just one, because it's very hard to read. It's a lot easier to read price action when we are steadily moving up or steadily moving down. For example, right now, if you look at what's happening on the chart right now, I'm on the 1 minute time frame, but if I go out onto like the 5 minute time frame, you can see it's probably going to be a lot easier to catch shorts, on the 5 minute time frame here than it is longs, right? Maybe somewhere over like right here, you can see that we are kind of just up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Right here, it's going to be a lot harder to kind of execute an entry because we are just kind of chopping around and consolidating. Now, when you are consolidating, you can anticipate a breakout, which is kind of the way that I trade, and then I'm going to teach you guys, not exactly how to trade, but I'm going to be going over my strategy in depth in this series, and that's kind of similar to what I do, right? So when you're chopping around like this, it's a lot harder to read price action, and it just in general is something that you want to stay away from. Now, how some people do like to trade is they will trade off the top and the bottom of a range. I personally don't like to do that. I just still think it's a lot more overcomplicated than just playing with the trend, but that is regardless. If that works for you, then by all means, go ahead and do that. Now, we are going to now talk about breaks of structure, or there's a million different words, like I said earlier. Basically, the market can obviously change direction, and it does many, many times, Right here, you can see we were moving up. We started to change direction. We started moving down. Right here, you can see we're moving down. We started to change direction to move up. So the market is always, changing direction as well. And a change of direction can sometimes be indicated as if we're, say, in a downtrend, like so. And let's say price comes up and breaks one of these highs like this. Some people would like to, call this a break of structure, a change of character, CISD, which is some concept I think is called change in something direction. Not actually the word something. I don't know what the S stands for. And vice versa, as we are if we're in an uptrend like this, say a lot of people, if we have a previous low here. Personally, this is the way that I trade. As soon as we kind of, break that low, I like to consider us now having a bearish bias, right? That can be called a million different things, but just keep in mind that's what, price tends to just do a lot. So right here, as you can see, even we'll just take this as an example on the 5-minute time frame, you can see that we are in this very steady uptrend. This is the 5-minute time frame, okay? So we have a low right here. We have a high right here. Actually, this might be easier if I go on to the 15-minute. Yeah, it's kind of easier to see. All right, so we have a high right here. We have a low right here. Right here, we have a higher high. And then right here, we have a higher low. Actually, let me go ahead and just circle these instead of making the lines so it's a little easier to see. Boom. We have a low here, and we have a high here. So we have a high here, a low here. Boom. We have a higher high right here. We have a higher low right here. We come up, we have a higher high, and then a higher low, and then a higher high. And then right here, we start to break and hold below that area. Right? As you can see here. We do, just barely hold this low right here, but then we start to break, and then look what happens. Now, this has turned into a downtrend, I'd say probably starting around right here, because we have broken this low, which was our last higher low, and then we have created a high, and then we have created a low, and then a lower high, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. It looks like maybe right now we're looking to create another lower high. So that is pretty much all trend is in a nutshell. Okay, obviously it is, pretty easy to read trend. It's very simple. Do not overcomplicate it. Right now, if I look at the chart, it's obvious that in the last hour we have been moving down. We are in an obvious downtrend. We are on the 1-minute time frame. I would still say that we are in a downtrend. So the trend is going to be different pretty much for every time frame. On the bigger time frames, it's going to be a lot easier to actually see. Now, the way that I trade is on smaller time frames, and I'm always trading. My bias is constantly switching throughout the day. So, for example, right here, I probably wouldn't be looking for anything. This looks like a bit of choppiness to me. If I, gun to my head, I had to pick a direction, I'd probably pick shorts just because that would be playing with the higher time frame bias. Now, I'm going to briefly go over some basic knowledge of supply and demand zones, which is also a small, confluence that I have recently implemented into my strategy. And I think that is just general knowledge to know. Good general knowledge to know in general. You know what I mean. We're going to take this day, for example. So this was Thursday, May 1st. So this was last Thursday. And first thing I notice instantly when I look at this is this right here. So supply and demand zones can be used in a variation of different ways. I want you guys going forward as we get more into the technical stuff, want you to understand that you can use all of these, things that I'm going to teach you any way you want. We're going to be talking about more in depth in a little bit, not in this episode, but down the line on how to form your own strategy. I'm going to be going in depth of my actual strategy as well, step by step. But I don't want you guys to just copy my strategy verbatim and my rules exactly when the time comes, because it might not work for you. As we've gone over, trading is all a mental game, and you're going to need to put together everything that you learn from this and from other sources as well to kind of create your own strategy. Anyway, first thing I notice right here is, when you look at the chart, you can see that there are areas that price respects multiple times. Now, in this case right here on this day, just looking back into it, not replaying it or anything, I can see that you know, we were in a little bit of a chop right over here. Where is my brush? Right, we're in a little bit of consolidation right here, right? Kind of down, up, down, up, down. And then we also have, I would say, probably about this high right here as well. That was respected here, 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 here. So we're in a little bit of consolidation right here. Now, once we break out of it, look what happens, right? We start to form a very, very strong uptrend. Now, this is kind of the way that I trade. I'm always looking for consolidation to form, and then I am looking for kind of a breakout, and then how I get confirmation for my entry, we will go in more in depth in another episode. I don't actually draw out these zones while I trade. I kind of just keep them in my head, but it might help you to actually physically draw them out, especially if you are a newer person. But you can see right here, I would consider this kind of consolidation, especially if I go out into the 5-minute time frame. You can kind of see it more clearly. Yes, we kind of had a decent push up and decent push down right here, but for the most part, this is consolidation before we start this uptrend. Now, how could you anticipate that this uptrend was going to start? Well, boom, we're right here, okay? We break above that high, or if we right here we were to break down below this low, I would look to, you know, play a short entry. But we're kind of consolidating. Boom, we break up, and then this is the start of an uptrend. As you can see, this is an uptrend because we break above and we create this high right here, and then we create a low, and then we create a high, and then a higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. And then once we break this right here, what do you know? We come down and then we create a high right there and a low right there. Lower high, lower low, boom, right? So you can easily identify a trend simply, I mean, really identifying trend can be as easy as just looking at the chart and seeing if you are moving up or down. A general rule of thumb is that if you can't just zoom out like this and say whether or not price is moving up or down, you are consolidating, and it is probably best to kind of take your, you know, take your foot off the burner a little bit, or take your foot off the gas a little bit. But what I want you guys to do is hop onto TradingView. And I want you guys to just, you know, I want you guys to look at areas, one, where price has respected multiple times. It can be as simple as going ahead and drawing a zone, you know, that looks something like this. And I also want you guys to just go ahead and see if you can identify trend and where it reverses in areas of consolidation. So right here, I can see that we are in a downtrend right here. Boom. And then we start to trend up. And then we reverse. And then right here, we start to consolidate. And then as soon as we break out, we start to form that little bit of an uptrend again. And that's really it, guys. Trend is very, very easy to understand, but playing with the trend, I think, is one of the most important parts of becoming a profitable trader. Because obviously, like I said earlier, if you are looking at something like this, it is going to be a lot easier to catch, you know, one of the moves in here than trying to catch one of these reversals. So this happens on any time frame. You are always going to be having a trend on any time frame you're looking at. But playing with the trend, to me, is so important, because why would you try to catch this tiny move up when you could just try to look for an entry to take, you know, anything in here to just ride this wave, ride with the trend, right? And that's the way that I'm going to be teaching you guys how to trade, and it's the way that I trade, and that has worked the best for me. But whatever works the best for you is what I want you guys to use. But I want you guys to just play around with this, try to identify some trends and reversals as well. And then tomorrow, we're going to get more in-depth into price action reading as well. And we're going to go more in-depth into zones and how I personally use them in my strategy, right? We briefly touched on them today. Just kind of showed there are levels where price respects multiple times. And once you break above them or below them, that can be an indication of a possible good entry, and that is part of my strategy that I'm going to go more in depth with you guys. We briefly touched over that today, and I want you guys to try and identify some areas where price held multiple times just like that as well. Right here, you can see we held this high very strongly, right? We kind of had this area, boom, respects it right there, comes in here, boom, respects it right there, boom, respects it right here again, and then on the higher time frame, we end up completely falling off of it, because look at how many times we respect right here, 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 and then once again right here. Price just couldn't get above it. That was such a strong area, and then we ended up dumping off of it. and then forming a pretty fat downtrend. That's going to be it for this video, guys. No, it was super basic, but don't worry. Just thug out the basic stuff and the foundational stuff, and once we get into the more, because, I'm just trying to give you guys a strong foundation first before we get into the more complex stuff, because if I started teaching you guys the more complex stuff without you knowing this, it would just make absolutely no fucking sense. So you have to build this foundation and this base first so that you know and have general knowledge on how this stuff works first before we get into everything else. With that being said, love you guys. Thank you for the support so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the next episode. And yeah, peace. Make sure to like and subscribe, please, again.